I just had to log on here for one quick second because I could. Yesterday, I was just sitting here thinking about this because I posted that video, you guys, of the guy calling up Donald Trump asking for their pardon, right, for R. Kelly, and so I was just sitting here thinking, right, and I had popped into Prima Donna's live yesterday. I don't typically watch all of anybody's live because they be long and it's will be a lot going on, right? But I had ended up popping into there yesterday because I saw what the topic was. And I popped in on a part where Prima Donna is going off about that Modi, right? And but I had missed this. I'd never seen this from Dana J. I don't know what live this was she was playing from Dana J. I don't know what part of the live that she was playing from Dana J. But Dana J was asking a question about Modi. And I don't know what this all sparked from. I don't know the conversation surrounding it or nothing. I just busted out laughing when I heard it. And I wanted to say something to you guys about it. Because y'all know I have been talking about this Modi and about me not believing him and all of this other crap, right? So Modi, Dana was saying something about, I guess, people wanting us to believe that R. Kelly, that Modi was reading R. Kelly's messages and things for him, right? But the fact that he got on an interview, and y'all know I told y'all I don't be listening to all of the Modi interviews because I can't listen to that heavy ass accent like that. So I don't be listening to all of those Modi interviews. So I don't know if Modi said this on the interview or not. But this is what both Dana and Prima Donna both are saying that I guess was said. Now, excuse me, y'all. One thing I did hear Modi say on that interview, he asked Willie D to make him famous. Okay. I did hear that. I heard that recently. Hey, Purple Purple, how you doing, boo? he asked Willie D to make him famous, right? But um Dana was saying in his live that Prima Donna was playing on her live that they want us to believe that Modi was supposedly reading R. Kelly's emails to him. But on one of these Willie D interviews, um, Modi is telling Willie D that R. Kelly was teaching him English. That R. Kelly was teaching him English. And so then Dana J says, now let me get this right. R. Kelly is teaching you English, but you got to read R. Kelly's mail to him. Now, in order to teach somebody how to speak English, you have to sound the words out for them. If R. Kelly was able to teach you English and sound the words out, why the hell would he need you to read his mail? oh, oh my, oh my God! Hey TSW, I don't know if you heard what I said, but yo, when Prima Donna played that on her live and she paused the video and Prima Donna started going in on that point. Oh my God, y'all! I felt like I was about to pass out. I could not catch my breath. Oh my God! Listen, Dana Dana J said if R. Kelly was able to sound the words out and teach Modi how to speak English by reading the word and sounding it out, what the hell did he need Modi to read his mail? oh my, oh my God. Yo, this shit don't get no better. This story don't get no goddamn better. Yo, how is Modi up on Willie D trying to say somebody had to teach him English, but then he needed somebody. He helping R. Kelly to read his damn mail. How the hell are you reading the mail if you don't know English? Oh, oh my god. This shit is insane. I don't know. I do not listen. Y'all, oh my goodness. When I saw that come through my feeds about the man asking Donald Trump to give R. Kelly a pardon, right? And I'm listening exactly to so you cannot make this shit up. You cannot. But the funny part, I'm gonna tell you what made it even more funny to me. The fact that Dana J and Prima Donna was pointing it that shit that made it more funny to me because of them two to being the ones pointing it out, right? Let somebody else have said that. Let it have been Larry, let it have been one of y'all, let anybody. No, it was more comedic because it was Dana J and Prima Donna pointing out that you are sending this man across platforms to say that R. Kelly was teaching him English, all while wanting people to believe that he had to read R. Kelly's mail. oh, oh my gosh. And y'all, he said, I'm at the gym listening. And I'm like, okay, just be, look, I was just saying, I know you be hating when I be talking about R. Kelly news, but I had seen something came across my timeline. Hey, Cookie. Hey, Boo. Hey, Just Be. Something came across my timeline about a man making like a parody asking for a pardon for R. Kelly, right? And so when I looked at that part, I was cracking up. And I was cracking up because I was like, like a few months, not even a few months ago, during election season, you had so many people like making the case for Trump getting into office for this reason. And I'm like, I wonder if this man maybe came across these people saying this, and this is where he got this idea to do this parody from, because that's exactly how some of these people over here in this sector were sounding, thinking that R. Kelly could get this pardon from Donald Trump. And so I was cracking up about that. But yesterday I had seen that Prima Donna was live, and I hopped into it really quick just to see because the title was about Modi, and y'all know I am an adamant believer that Modi is just telling lies, right? You say, is it the guy in the car who does the phone calls? Yes, yes, it's him. Just be. Yes, him. And so I reposted his little skit that he did, calling up Donald Trump, asking for a pardon for R. Kelly, right? And so, but then it made me think back while I'm listening to him. It made me think back to Prima Donna's live that I jumped in. So I must have jumped into Prima Donna live right at the point where she's playing this live from Dana J. And I don't know what live this was Dana J did, and I probably couldn't even find it because, like I said, a lot of times with their lives, they long and then they talk about so many different things. So I don't know if this was a recent live that Dana did. I don't know what it was. But Dana was questioning the fact that Modi has been on these platforms and on Willie D platform and saying that R. Kelly taught him English, all while saying that R. Kelly needed him to read to him his emails and messages that he's getting in jail and paperwork in jail. And they are basically questioning it like, what kind of sense does this make? And to me, it was more comedic because of who is coming, the two people is coming from. Like, oftentimes, they get upset when what they call the ops point something out that looks weird and strange. But the fact that they are pointing this out, it just was hilarious to me. And I was like, I gotta come live and ask y'all, did y'all see this shit? Because I don't know if Modi, you said it was from this week. Okay, okay. You said you saw some of it. It was from this week. Yeah, I did not know what live that was from. So, but I never heard Dana J ask that question. So when I hopped in there at that part And I hear Dana saying this. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What the hell is going on? Because this is my thing. If you don't believe, okay, if you see those contradictions in Modi's story, why don't you think the whole story is a contradiction? I think that's where I am at with this. Like, if you see the contradiction in how Modi is telling these stories about R. Kelly was teaching him English, but then he was reading R. Kelly his mail, and you can come to the conclusion that, okay, well, if R. Kelly could teach Modi English, meaning that he needed to sound words out for him, like we on The Color Purple, right? Nettie and Sally. And people are saying that, Kels doesn't have this ability to do that. Now, I don't know if he does or not. So, but if he does, then that is right. Why do you need somebody else to read your messages? You can read your own damn messages. You don't need to give your passwords. You don't need to trust nobody else to read and translate. You can read your own shit. So I just y'all, I was cracking up. I encourage y'all to go over there and watch Prima Daughter Live from yesterday, because I don't mean no harm, but it was funny. I'm sorry. That live was funny, at least the part I seen. That live was funny from yesterday. And I was just like, oh my God. I was just like, I'm a little bit more controlled today in my laughter because I heard it already. But y'all, yesterday when I first heard it, oh my gosh, I felt like I was losing my breath. I could not believe it. And my thing is that is the prime point I'm making. If his if those kind of statements, and I didn't hear Modi say that, but apparently they heard him say that on one of the lives. Now I'm telling y'all, because I tried to see if I could go back and tolerate Modi's accent. I be calling him Mondi, Modi. I don't know which one. I think it's Modi, because I finally did like try to click in and listen to a decent amount of one of Willie D's calls with him. Now I'm gonna tell you, the beginning of that call, claiming it's coming from that jail, sounds suspect. Okay, it sounds suspect. Y'all listen to it and y'all let me know. Maybe y'all ain't pay attention to it all that good, but I know how the jail call sound. Okay, I know how it sound coming from the federal system. I know how it sound coming from multiple state systems. Okay. Something sounds suspect about the intro of that jail call. Okay. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But y'all go and listen to that. I think it might have been the very first one he did with Willie D. And I think that very first one he did with Willie D, this man told Willie D to make him famous. And this is what I'm saying. This is why I cannot believe this stuff. I don't know if it's the people that be helping cows out be so naive and gullible or whatever that I'm not talking about all of the supporters or all of the content creators. I'm talking about specifically people who are doing things like to try to help him out, or they say they trying to help him out, and they be so naive and gullible that they grasping for straws, that they looking for anything that might help him, so they believe people like to me this is what makes it easy for somebody to come and troll somebody. When you believe this type of shit. When you it's the same thing I say, like when the elderly people be falling for these scams, these Ponzi scams. Like you are so hell bent on trying to help somebody out of a situation that you are making yourself vulnerable to anybody that might contact you and tell you that they got any kind of information on the situation, and then you're running with the narrative and not really looking at it fully and saying, wait a minute, is this real or is this somebody playing with my emotions? Like, I don't know what this shit is about. I don't. But the man says at the beginning of the thing, I was able to make that part out. The first couple of statements that he was saying to Willie D, I couldn't understand. And based on the look on Willie D's face, I don't think Willie D could understand them first couple of statements either. But when that man told Willie D to make him famous, I could understand that part. I understood that. Um, so to me, that doesn't make him that much different than the other one, Ronnie Bo out here. And y'all know I have talked about him. So I'm equal opportunity. If I see something that look right, I will acknowledge that. If I see something that to me it don't look right, I'm acknowledging it. And it's just coming from my own opinion. It's nothing personal against nobody. I don't know anybody personally on here to have nothing personal about it. So I'm just stating what I'm looking at as a viewer. Like, just consider me as a viewer who is looking at all of this shit unfold and giving my opinion on what is happening. And that shit help to like get a gauge of what the normal viewer is looking at when they are hearing this stuff. You don't think that the normal viewer heard exactly what Dana J and Prima Donna pointed out? That you want us to believe that Modi is responsible for translating and reading Cal's jail mail that's coming in English. But then you want us also to believe that R. Kelly is teaching him English. Which one is it? We cannot believe both of those things. And if we have somebody giving us these walking contradictions, then 9 times out of 10, just like they want us to throw out the testimony of all the witnesses if they make one lie up. I'm throwing it out. I'm throwing all of it out. I don't believe none of this shit. None of it. If that works when it comes down to the witnesses in the case, that if they feel like they told one lie, just throw the whole testimony out. If I catch you in one thing that I think is a lie when you are trying to put these people in front of us and tell us this shit, I'm throwing the whole shit out. I don't believe Ronnie Bo. I don't believe Modi. I don't believe Bo Brindley. I don't believe none of this shit. All of this shit is a farce on Chicago. Okay? Instead of it being a farce in Washington, this is a farce in Chicago. I don't believe none of this shit. I don't know what was done to vet the story of this cellmate or whatever, but this whole shit is not nothing but a shit show. And I am interested to see how the fuck this shit is gonna come out. I'm interested to see. That's why I said I really do want this to go to an evidentiary hearing because I really want Modi to have to get on the stand and give testimony. And then I'm really interested into have the prosecutors got a hold of all of these calls that he's been doing on all of these platforms that he's been appearing on. And I really want to know if they're going to bring out some of the statements and some of the things that he had to say on these platforms. Now, the things that might not make it to court is the sleeping with Whitney Houston part. What else did he say? The R. Kelly had a romantic relationship with Whitney Houston. Gayle King paid R. Kelly for the interview for that performance. What you say, Cookie? You said maybe he's teaching him words without sounding it out. Kels do know words of how to talk. Okay, but then why would he need Modi? If Modi cannot understand English, Cookie, stop trying to. No, 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 no. You're sounding like one of these people that's going to fall for the Ponzi scam. Okay, I just got to be honest. If Modi does not know how to read to speak English in terms of being able to speak regular vernacular, right? Words that Kels can make out, okay? How in the hell is he gonna read some goddamn mail to guys? I got a call. So you said no, it's like telling him how to use a word. How is he then reading and interpreting mail to R. Kelly? Cookie. That's the question. If he cannot, if he doesn't know the basic functions and elements of English, what good is it to be reading mail to cows? Like, that's the question. We're not asking him to spell cat or sat or bat or hat. He is on these calls saying that he has needed to read and interpret that reading to R. Kelly. And this is the reason he had access to R. Kelly's things. Well, if he doesn't know the English language that well, what is the point of having him do it? He's not in no better predicament than R. Kelly. If R. Kelly can read the words, no, Cookie, you are trying to do gymnastics, backflips. You said a person who can't read can't teach language. Exactly. To a person whose language they can't speak. And why would a person who doesn't understand English? Exactly. Exactly. That is the point. And this is what both Dana J and Prima Donna were saying. If R. Kelly needed to teach Modi basic fundamentals of the English language and reading, then R. Kelly would be able to read his own mail and then interpret the words that he can't make out. If Modi can't understand the basic laydown and foundation of the English language, then what good would that do? He's in no better predicament than R. Kelly. And that's the problem. So many of the people try to do all of these backflips to make a story fit that does not fit. You say maybe they both understand maybe. Or maybe R. Kelly understand whatever Modi's native tongue is, and Modi was reading the translating the English language into his native tongue for interpretation, which that still requires some understanding of the English language. Something that Modi claimed that he don't have. You say, like, if I say what the word I'm looking for to say, I'm tired. What? Okay, Cookie. This is my question. If Modi does not understand how to pronounce and enunciate certain English words in the English language, how in the hell is he reading R. Kelly's mail if he can't pronounce the words? If he needs R. Kelly's help, we're not talking about synonyms and antonyms. He's saying that R. Kelly taught him how to teach English. You can go in a person with basic understanding of the English language could go into a thesaurus and find another word for exhausted or tired. They don't need someone to tell them that. But if you don't even know how to pronounce tired, how it's supposed to be said and pronounced, and then you claim you're going to read the word tired to someone else who supposedly doesn't know how to read it, and that's why they need you to read it. What sense does that make? You said, I can't imagine wasting my time coming up with these idiotic theories to help in the case of a man that I don't know, and I won't be used either way. This man was convicted of crimes against kids. Exactly. Like, I don't know. Listen, just me. I can't make no sense of it. But this is a prime example. You see it? You see it. This is a prime example. And this is why when he gets across these platforms, there are people like me that say this doesn't make sense. There are people like you, Just Be, who say it doesn't make sense, and I don't give no damn that it don't make no sense because this is the crimes that this man was convicted of. And then it's people that are in between Cookie that's saying, well, I believe it, but they might not be able to come up with a justification for why they believe it. And then it's people that's like Cookie that's going to try to create some kind of You said my husband can maybe pronounce a word, but not comprehend definition. Okay, that is the whole situation with R. Kelly. Or at least that's what we're being told. That's the whole situation with him, Cookie. Is that he cannot pronounce certain words and then comprehend the meaning of those words. So what good is it to have someone who is in the same position as him reading and translating his mail for him? That's the question. If that's the case, he could struggle with trying to get through it and go get himself a dictionary to go look up the words. Because at least he knows his way around the English language. This man don't even know his way. English is not his first language. He doesn't even know his way around the English language. And he's saying that R. Kelly is having to help him with English. Well, if he's having to help him with English and R. Kelly supposedly is helping him by not by doing phonics or sight words to help him, which is how you teach someone to read. This is how you teach a little child to read. You teach a little child to read either through phonics, which is the sounding, pronunciation of words, the sounding of words out, which I happen to think is the best way to teach a child to read, or by sight words, right? And if R. Kelly struggles with those basic fundamentals, this is what everybody else says. I don't know this to be 100% true. I know that he said he had some learning disabilities, he had some issues, but when it comes to if this is something that he is fundamentally struggling with, and then you have someone who English is not their first language, and this is going to be the same struggle they are going to have. What sense does it make that this man is the one that is interpreting his mail for him? Okay, Cookie, what good is it if he don't even know if he's interpreting the right word? Like, that's what I don't understand. Cookie, I teach you a lot, but that's because I know how to read. I know the English language. If you ask me to tell you something in Arabic and to read your mail, if you spoke Arabic and you ask me to read your Arabic mail to you, and I only know what the hell do I know in Arabic? Um, what is that shit that Malcolm X and them be saying? Whatever that bullshit. That's all that I know. What good am I? What good am I? You are a hindrance to me understanding what I need to understand in order for me to get gone and get on. Shalom, that's in Israel, ain't it? that's that's Israeli or whatever language the Israelis speak, ain't it? Shalom. Whatever it is. You say, so you trust I am learning what you teach. Cookie. Modi is claiming that he is reading reading and interpreting R. Kelly's mail to him because R. Kelly can't read. He has difficulty reading. Then he's claiming that R. Kelly is teaching him English. How are you able? It doesn't go. I'm sorry. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Like, it doesn't, none of it sounds right. None of it sounds right. Think about when you are teaching a little child to read, when you are teaching a little child English, how to understand words, how to put words together. None of that goes right. If R. Kelly doesn't understand whatever language it is that Modi knows, so how is he able to listen to what Modi is asking to say in English and then coming up with a way for it to be translated? I mean, in his language, in Modi's language, and then coming for a way for it to be translated in English. None of this shit, it makes no kind of sense. You said, I don't know, no one asked me to translate. Exactly. But guess what? Because I got some basic understanding of that term, I know who speaks it. I know where I hear it at and where it come from. And I know I don't hear no Arabic people saying shalom unless maybe they speaking to a Jewish person, right? I have to have that basic understanding of that. I know how to spell shalom. I know how to pronounce shalom. If I need someone to read my mail to me, that means I have basic trouble pronouncing words, looking at words and using phonics to pronounce them. And that seems to be the same issue Modi has and why he needs someone to teach him English. So, how do you have two people in the same ship? This does not work. It doesn't work. Oh my gosh. Listen, this is always y'all reasoning. because y'all always find some justification for what he knows and what he don't know. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the laughter of the matter. I'm here for the comedic relief that came from both Dana J and from Prima Donna. And that is that they asked the fundamental question, one that a lot of people who are listening to this bullshit are going to ask. Now, for those people who want to do the mental gymnastics to try to come up with now all of a sudden Kels knows how to speak Pakistani or whatever it is language did they speak. Um, he knows how to speak that, so he knows how to use that in order to interpret it into the English language. But then again, he still needs this man to read his jail mail. Come on now. Come on. This is the crazy shit that people want us to believe. And then they get angry when people don't believe it. And then they get angry when people point it out. And my only laughter in the matter is the two people who pointed it out, because that is the same thing that most of us who would have heard this would have asked the same question. You say he can't read, but he can teach. He's a okay. I guess that's your opinion. He's musically inclined. He's a musical genius. I don't know about genius. I don't know about genius. Musical, yes. I don't know about genius. That might be something that those who are part of the cult of R. Kelly might subscribe to. But I can say a musical genius. I don't know about genius. Okay, Cookie? That's going too far. And if he was a genius, he wouldn't need nobody to read his mail. He wouldn't need nobody to read it. Furthermore, in most of those prisons, they have aides. Guess what? I can read Spanish and interpret what the words read when it's spoken, but it's more difficult for me to speak Spanish. But Cookie, you cannot have someone read Spanish to you. You would not, somebody who speaks Spanish is not going to come get you and ask you to interpret what someone is saying or to read the mail. They're not going to ask you that. You say he's a musical genius, but he can't read. So he's exactly just be like, I don't know where this shit thoughts and shits come from. I don't know. Lord have mercy. I'm not even. That's not even nothing. I'm trying to come back today. I am not trying to sweat. I got this heating pad sitting on the side of me. Because I'm still dealing with this. I'm not even trying to combat that type of shit today. It's too hot for that, and I got my air already on 60. Okay, so I'm not even trying to do the work in order to try to come up with that. I think the most common sense approach is what makes sense, and a lot of times common sense is twisted around in the other direction, in that the way I don't quite understand. You saying being gifted at something doesn't make everything easier. I wouldn't hire LeBron to tutor my kid, and exactly. Like, I don't know where this idea that because someone is great in one facet that they across are smart. You said the more I laughed about, no, it actually hurts a little bit, Cookie, when I'm laughing. It actually hurts. But no, what you are doing is making me like sweat. It's making me hot because it's like I know that you know better. And this is the thing that all of y'all do in order to try to conflate a situation or try to make whatever it is that is put out here on him fit. But when it comes to the other side using rationale to come to a conclusion that most people would arrive at on the other side, y'all do the same thing. Y'all find all of these ways to make it not fit, to not make it not right. I don't know what that shit is about. I don't even know what the need for it is. But to me, it's just like I said, it's about cult mentality. And as Americans, that is something that we are taught to do. And we will use our education in the ways where we think it is beneficial to our narrative. But then when we think it's not beneficial to our narrative, then we will use education against the opposing narrative. That's another thing I think is funny. We will use the education that we received in order to create the narrative that supports our theory. But then we will damn the same education that we use to formulate our own theory in order to dismantle another theory. And then blame education for why anybody would come up with that theory. And to me, that is weird. Okay. You said y'all hiring Stevie Wonder to teach you to drive. He's a exactly, Just B. Or that listen, R. Kelly would have been better having Stevie Wonder help him interpret his jail mail by Braille. He could have asked, look, listen, and this is a prime example I'm about to make in order for me to go into what I'm about to say next. If Stevie Wonder was R. Kelly's Sally, and R. Kelly asked the jail, can you please create an accommodation to where Stevie Wonder can read me my jail mail because I can't read. So I need some assistance in reading. And he knows how to read, but he just doesn't know how to read by using his eyes because he can't see. So let me go ahead and ask the jail if they can assist Stevie Wonder in looking at my mail and making it in Braille so that he can tell me what it means, right? Well, let's switch this shit around. Most of these prisons, most of these jails have a voice recognition system, and they have a system to where you can speak to text in order for those who deal with those type of impairments or learning disabilities. The need for Modi to do whatever they claim he needed to do was not necessary. For the same reason I just said. Because it sounds ridiculous to ask the jail to put your mail as an inmate in Braille so that your cellmate can do what they tell you not to do, which is to get access to the mail of other inmates in order to help them interpret their mail, because they know what can happen when that happens. They are doing what they can in order to protect people's due process. Protecting your mail is part of protecting your own due process. When you allow someone else to go into your mail and read your mail, you are waiving your right to what? That privacy. So you cannot then accuse the government, the state, anyone else of denying you of due process, of denying you of the right to privacy, in order to be able to defend whatever it is. You cannot then blame the system who tried to create systems for you to be able to do these things on your own so that you won't be compromised in this way. And then use the excuse, well, oh, he did not know how to read himself, so he needed someone to read for him. Most of these jails and prisons, they are using sophisticated technology when they are allowing these people to exchange with one another. I checked with my son. There is options for voice recognition, for speak to text for these people. He did not need someone to do that. So either maybe what this person is saying might not be true, or it could be true. I don't know. Maybe he's lying about R. Kelly teaching him English, and maybe he does really know English, and he's just, I don't know why he would come on there and say none of this stuff, right? But there would be no reason that a system would look at you if you asked Stevie Wonder, if Stevie Wonder was your cellmate, and you went to the warden of the jail, and you said, Warden, I need you to make my text available in Braille so that my cellmate can tell me what my texts are saying that are coming from my family and friends. The warden is going to look at you like you lost your fucking mind, because it's in the rules that no inmate is supposed to give another inmate access to none of that shit. They have, just like they have created ways for Stevie Wonder to be able to read his mail on his own by using features that could maybe talk to text, voice recognition, in order for him to be able to do it on his own without that assistance. They've created something to help his impairment. They have the same thing to help the same man who's going to go ask for this. You said, didn't Sharon dig a Modi? This sounds like her shenanigans. I don't know where he came from first. I think that's where I seen him at first. And I think I remember her saying something about that he reached out to her or something. But that's what I'm saying. Like, these people make themselves vulnerable. This exact thinking. All of this stuff that Cookie is coming in here and saying, right? This makes them vulnerable to believe anybody who will be coming to them telling them some bullshit ass lies. This is exactly why all of these people was believing Ronnie Bowe. They was believing Ronnie Bowe and not seeing through the bullshit that Ronnie Bowe was doing because they are so much in favor, in support of a person that their judgment is clouded. And I don't. And the thing that I think like throws me about it is that in other scenarios, when it comes to some of these people, and I listen to them like think out other situations and scenarios, they are able to use their judgment in a coherent, cohesive way that will allow them to arrive at a different conclusion. But when it comes to this subject, it's like that shit goes out the window. It goes out the window. And this is the thing. This is not, I'm only speaking on this subject because it's the subject for most of the people that come to my channel. But there are other situations and scenarios that I have watched when I look at other interactions, social interactions in other social groups where I see the same thing happen. You will be amongst a group of people who you will hear speak about multiple various issues, and they will use their critical thinking and reasoning skills in order to come to a solid conclusion on something. And then when it comes to one particular topic, all those critical thinking and reasoning skills go out the fucking window, and they find every way to make what would be good critical thinking and reasoning not make any sense. They try to make it distorted, to make it not make any sense to anyone. And this is one of those situations. And that's why I found the comedy in the fact that Prima Donna and Dana J were pointing this out. That they are pointing out that, hey, you want us, you selling this? This is really the product you want to sell. This is really what you want us to buy. No, we're not doing that. But I think that there is something to say for what you just said, Just V. Like, if you don't want Stevie Wonder to teach you how to drive, because maybe he does know how to drive. I don't know. I don't know if Stevie Wonder knows how to drive. But I definitely know that he's not somebody that I'm going to first to teach me how to drive. But if let's switch this and make Stevie Wonder the cellmate. And there are ways for Stevie Wonder to be able to read his personal mail, to be able to continue interaction with his loved ones. And if he knows Braille, he's able to do that. And so this would be like you asking for another inmate, his cellmate, asking, can you make sure you put my personal information in Braille too, so that Stevie Wonder can then translate that for me as well? Well, then that wouldn't make sense to the warden at the prison, because that is something you're not even supposed to do. And this is why they create these ways for the hearing and visual impaired that also benefit some other people, like a R. Kelly who has trouble reading, so that they can maintain their privacy. So there are things in the prison system that are there to be able to aid and help individuals who have a visual or hearing impairment or some type of learning disability to be able to still communicate effectively with people inside and outside of the prison. And those are the things that were supposed to be used in this situation. Instead, they want us to believe some other bullshit. So, JoJo, don't come in here with that shit. Don't come in here with that shit. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, y'all be on some fucking bullshit. That's why I come over here and I talk on my channel, just like everybody else. People be thinking that when a person don't come to their channel, that it's, oh, they don't want the challenge. No, that's why you're on your channel. Because you don't want it either, really. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm not going to entertain shit that doesn't make sense. It is known why abroad that Stevie Wonder is blind. I'm not talking about his blindness to talk about whether he's really blind or not. I'm referencing his blindness to say that if Stevie Wonder was my cellmate and I had an issue being able to read, I am not going to go to the warden of prison and ask them to put my messages in Braille so that Stevie Wonder can read my messages to me. Because to the warden, that's going to sound absurd. It's going to sound absurd, number one, because it's something that it's against the rules. That's the first thing, reason why. And it's against the rules because they are attempting to protect your rights as an inmate in order to defend yourself. That it might be something that might come across there that could be used against you in your defense. And then they're going to say, this is exactly what they're going to say. Since we gave this inmate the ability to be able to read your messages to help you out because you couldn't read. And now because he's taken something that he's read in your personal information, and then now he's going to take that to try to make some kind of deal for himself, you're going to come back and blame us in the end. This is why we're not going to let you do it. Even when you're being foolish and irrational, we are still going to not allow you to do it. Because if we allow you to do it, if we say it's okay for you to do it, and then this person takes what they read and they go and they give it to someone in order to try to get a better deal for them, you're going to come back and blame us for allowing you to do it. So that's why the rule is just you just can't do it. You can't. And if you do it, just like that, just like you can be punished for various things, you can be punished for allowing someone to do it. You said what? SW don't need to see in order to know how to drive. Listen, that's not what we are saying. We are asking you, are you going to go get him to teach your child how to drive? No. Let's get down to the basic fundamentals. Are you going to go and hire and pay Stevie Wonder to teach your child how to drive? Are you going to trust Stevie Wonder to drive your child in a car? If y'all want to go there, we can go there. Okay? If that's where y'all going, we can go there. Are you going to trust Stevie Wonder, either one of the two of y'all in here trying to defend this? Are you going to trust your child in a car with Stevie Wonder? Are you going to trust Stevie Wonder to drive you? Are you going to trust yourself on the road with Stevie Wonder driving beside you? Are you going to go pay your money for Stevie Wonder to teach you, your child, or anyone in your family how to drive? No, you're not. No, you're not. You know damn well you a liar. You know damn well you a liar. But this is the thing that I think is funny. The level of aggression that is displayed when people speak on these things, when people go back to their own channels, and then when they come to somebody else's channel, the laughter that they try to create is funny to me. Like, people know damn well they ain't gonna trust R. Kelly with their children. They not gonna trust Stevie Wonder to be their child's driver's ed teacher. They know they not gonna trust their child to sign no contract with P. Diddy. Like this, and that's what I mean, is that it's not even no truthfulness in the conversation. There's no truthfulness in the conversation. Everything is just a way in order to try to make something fit that people know doesn't fit. But I don't even give a damn about this. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go pay my Stevie Wonder to do that. I'm going to use my good common sense and say, no, I'm not going to do that. When I'm looking to determine who's going to teach my child how to drive, I'm going to look at the accreditation. I'm going to look at the reviews. I'm going to look at all of that shit. Who's going to hire Bo Brinley to be their legal attorney after looking at all the reviews? Like, you said, doesn't a third party destroy the attorney-client privilege? Exactly. Exactly. Which is TSW, which is why I'm saying that then you can't then blame the governing entity for when the breach happens, because you allowed the breach. You gave this individual access. This is why it is up to the inmate in order to protect their paperwork inside of their cell. This is why it is up to the inmate to protect their passwords and all of that and not give access, because the system is attempting, I don't care what nobody say, the system is attempting to protect your due process rights. They are giving you a disclaimer to let you know that if you talk inside these particular systems, we already have access to what you're saying. So the thing is that they don't need any outside person to come in and tell them any of this stuff. But when you give access to someone else, you are making yourself vulnerable. That is not you. You cannot count on another individual who is in a legal situation to not try to use your information that you freely gave to them in order to try to get themselves out of a situation. I don't care what people call it. I don't care how people look at it. Like, that's what happens. It happens in jail all the time. And it is the reason why they tried to create a system to where, okay, they try to warn the inmate, don't trust people with your legal information. Don't trust people with your personal information. But they can't make the people not do that. And so if you over time develop what you claim a relationship or a friendship with someone, and then you start to trust them and tell them your business, and you're telling them things that could end up incriminating you, and then they go to the government, you can't blame the government for that person going to the government. That's your fault for telling it to them. That's your fault for giving access. This happens all the time. It is not anything unusual. And I think that that is the other thing when we look at this scenario. It is made to believe, or they want us to believe, right, that this is an unusual extenuating circumstance. This happens all the time in jail, in prisons. This is nothing unusual. Cellmates, other inmates go and testify against other inmates all the time. Sometimes the information is true. Sometimes they find out that the inmate is lying. But they do it all the time. There are lots of cases where this happens. What cookie? I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. But this happens all the time. So I don't know why this is made to believe this is something unique. I just did a live where I talked about Mike Jeffries, which is another misnomer where people seem to think nothing's happening and there's no movement happening with that case. And I just did a live where I talked about Mike Jeffries, and that one was quiet. Wasn't nobody doing all of this talking in that one, right? Because it was proving a point. It was proven that the government can listen into your calls, and they don't give a damn whether you're talking attorney-client strategy or not, because you shouldn't be talking attorney. It's not protected under attorney-client privilege just because you feel like that you're talking to your attorney. You have to be using the proper channels in order for you to keep that information confidential. And if you are not using the proper channels in order to maintain that confidentiality, you are giving assistance to the government to see what your strategy is. You are the one telling it, not someone else. Not, oh, it's the government's fault for eavesdropping. They're telling you they eavesdrop on that line. There is a back channel of communication that takes place in order to protect the attorney-client privilege. It is up to the attorney and to the defendant in order to request that they speak on those channels in order. Jojo, stop putting that shit in my chat. Stop putting that shit in here. I'm not talking about that. So it is up to the defendant and up to the inmate in order to and see, that's what I mean. Like, this is fucking stupid. It is up to the inmate or the defendant and the attorney to request that back channel to make sure that that stays attorney-client privilege information. Mike Jeffries is on the line, and he is discussing his strategy with people who are treating him, with his lover, all types of people. And what did the prosecution do? They brought it into court and they played it and they used the recording. There was nothing that the judge determined was not copacetic about them doing that, because they are allowed to do that. When the attorney when the psychiatrist or psychologist, when the client or anyone else on those conversations talks about things, whether they believe them to be attorney-client privilege or not, on a line that is saying that it is being recorded, and then they expect the government not to use it to their advantage when they need to, that's their waiving of rights. That is not the government taking something from them and infringing on their rights. It's not. And we are seeing it in the Mike Jeffries case. I don't see a whole bunch of rallying. Number one, there are so many people who want to believe that Mike Jeffries, like they just forgot about it. That's the messaging going on out here. The messaging going on out here about Mike Jeffries with the Abercrombie and Finch is that, oh, what about him? They just forgot about him. They just let him plead like he's incompetent. No, they didn't. They determined that he was competent in December, and now the prosecution has presented more evidence using his jail calls to confirm his competency. They use their jail calls to confirm that he's competent. And in those jail calls, he's discussing what strategy. And guess what? The judge, the prosecutor, or nobody else don't care. And guess what the defense can't do? They can't argue that his privacy was invaded by them listening to his calls. They can't come up with a defense of that his due process was breached. Not in that situation. None of that can be determined. It's evidence. It was admissible in court. They didn't need to go get an outside person to bring it into them. They are using this white man who also thinks that this is a money grab and this is why he's being prosecuted. So it's the same thing that the colored man thinks. The same thing the colored man thinks is happening to him, this white man thinks is happening to him. And his defense team is trying to use that in order to support his incompetence, saying he doesn't understand the seriousness of the crime that he committed or is being accused of committing. So this goes to show you that he's incompetent, right? That's what they're trying to go. They're trying to turn his thinking that he's being prosecuted because it's a money grab into a win for them by saying, well, this just shows the level of his incompetence because he doesn't even understand the seriousness and the real reason of why he's being charged with this. This is where his defense team tried to switch it around to. But there is no argument over the evidence that was allowed to be admitted in court where they are playing his jail calls and him discussing his strategy and telling his the people who are treating him medically what they need to do in order to make sure that he is found incompetent. He decided to discuss that on the line. So he waived his privilege. He waived his rights. And as a result, it is being used against him. So, but in that live, I had nobody. I had my regular people was in here, but nobody was commenting in that live. Nobody had nothing to say in that live because it didn't fit the narrative that's been pushed. It didn't go along with what's being said. It wasn't a situation where people are looking at a disparity between a black against a white man, a black man. This was about a white man who was accused of something similar and is facing the same amount of time and made reference to the same 30 years. And it was nothing said, because then you can just act like you didn't see it. You can act like you didn't hear it. You can act like it's not happening. Some people, they don't know it's happening just because they just didn't look. They didn't know. They didn't go look for the information. But some people know that some of the stuff that's being peddled is not true and is a lie. And they continue to pretend like they don't know that it's a lie and that it's not true because it doesn't go along with their overall narrative, their overall purpose, the overall reason of why they're here. It's not to really engage in truthful dialogue. It's to distort the dialogue into the way they want it to look. And like I said, and then when you hear them talk about other situations and scenarios and people, It could be, oh, never let a thief back in your house. Because then if they steal one time, they'll steal again. They understand that. I didn't heard they said, oh, don't never trust a thief to come back in your house. Because if you let a thief back, they stole from you one time, they're going to steal again. But then they don't apply that same kind of critical thinking when they are looking at these other situations and scenarios. They want everybody to be so trusting when we see what happens. I don't get it. I just don't. None of these tactics are new. I think that's the whole point of what I come out in this channel say. None of these tactics are new. You don't believe what? Cookie, I know you don't believe it, but I've heard lots of people say that. I know you don't believe not to let a thief back in your house. But I've heard lots of people who want you to trust someone who has violated children, but don't want you to trust the thief. I've heard that across the airways. Okay? So I'm more likely to let a thief back into my house than I am to trust someone who harms kids. I'm just saying. But there are some people who claim to have such a strict standard that, oh no, you never let a thief back in your house. Oh, don't never trust no homeless person who come up to you and ask you for $1. They have some kind of motive. But the motives of others will be laid all the way out for them to see, and they will pretend and find ways to justify why that is not. Why that's not a thing. That's just what people do, because whatever narrative, if they have some type of attachment to the story, they are going to create some type of excuse, some type of justification for, number one, why it's unique. And then number two, why this doesn't apply to this situation. But none of these things that are being done, none of these, I think that's why it's not even really a shock. All of the things that other people laugh about, that some of the people think people shouldn't laugh about, but we can't help but to laugh about because you see it happen all the time. These tactics are not new. Diane Downs, who is a woman who killed her children because she got involved in the 80s. She got involved with a man who did not want to be with someone who had children. So she decided she was going to try to off her children. She was successful, I think, in doing 2 of them, and then the other 2 survived. She is, to this date, asking for a DNA analysis on a piece of chewing gum. Like, so the tactics, she first blamed a black man for committing the crime. And then she's asking for a piece. Yeah, and she broke out of jail. Exactly. Caused all kinds of confusion in the jail. One of the main reasons that she cannot get parole is because of all of the shit that she has done in the process of her being incarcerated. And this is another point that I've made on my channel, is that I don't think people think about. This is something else that I listened to Mark Garagos and what's my boy at TMZ, Harvey, talk about in the Mackenzie Shriller case. They were saying that she's doing things in the jail with the anticipation that she's going to be successful on one of these appeals or on the habeas. And she's not thinking about that when she becomes eligible for parole in those 15 years, if she has to stick this out, and if she has to go through having to deal with going through this sentence, and then she has to get to that 15 years where she will then be eligible for parole. She is doing things where she's not even thinking about how this will impact her. And it's the same thing I have said in this scenario. You're not thinking about how all of the things that you're doing could impact you when you sit before that parole board. You just don't. Because you're in denial about you being accountable for the things you've done in the first place. So you are, Diane Downs, all of the evidence points towards that she committed this crime. But she's the one in denial about having committed the crime. One of her own children even testified about her committing the crime. So, in addition, short of not having video evidence, which in this case we have video evidence, right? Short of us not having the video evidence, in the Diane Downs case, we have video. Her child is a testimony. She's a living victim witness who is testifying about what happened the night that the crime took place. But Jojo, I'm not over here for that. She's not, and now she just wants out. Exactly. And that's what a lot of them want. And then you will find people create a whole lot of excuses and justifications to say, oh, well, what do you expect? The person just wants out of jail. Okay, did they think about that when they were doing the shit that got them in there? Did they think about not wanting to be in jail when they did the shit to get them in there? No. When they were doing the shit that they were doing that got them into jail, they were having fun. They was having big fun in Baltimore. They was drinking and being married. And they didn't realize that then comes the flood. And then the drama that they create after they get into the situation, they do not consider how that drama will impact their release at a later time. And they don't realize the impact of that drama until they get to that place where they are facing being released, because they never thought that they would get there. They thought that something would happen that would help them. They thought that some way along the way, those tricks would help them to be able to get out of the situation. And so they never thought that they would have to get to a point where they would have to sit before a parole board and then give an explanation for all of these misdeeds that took place while you were in the system. And so then when they are trying to come up with whatever they come up with for that, and then it doesn't work, then they're looking at it, oh, it's still an injustice. It's never any accountability on them. It's still, the system did this to me. It's never a look at it and saying, oh, I'm accountable. I know that I did this part to get me in this. Let me see if I can find somebody who can help me to try to get out of this without doing all of this, without creating all of this drama, without creating all of these stories, all of this lies, all of this junk that's junking my situation up even more. No, it's never that. It's always all of these shenanigans and tactics that then people are supposed to forget. Like, I don't think, because there is already a distrust of the system, and I don't know why anybody would ever think that I don't think that the system can be in error. I know that. I have acknowledged that on several occasions. But I think that because people know that people already have a distrust in the system, these people use that to their advantage. And this is how they get people to join in with them, making them think that the system is doing something to them, when actually the system is working effectively in their situation. But they are able to use the distrust that people already have for the system in order to try to gain support, in order to try to get themselves out of their scenario and out of their situation. Like when you look at the guy with the Julio Fulio, Sean, whatever his last name is. I think, isn't his name Sean Just B? You took somebody else's life. But somehow you think your life and your ability to be able to live your life free is more important than that person's life. Who told you that? Somebody told you that. And then there are people who support that. And there are people who have begin to rally behind that. Okay, yeah, Sean. Rally behind that. There were people who started a GoFundMe to try to help him deal with his appellate situation. Yo, yeah, Gaithright. Yeah, Sean Gaithright. Because somehow, and this is the message that this says to me, that person's life is more important than the person's life who you affected, who you impacted. That's what they want us to believe. I don't believe in the death penalty. And everybody on my channel knows that. I believe that there are too many situations where we just get it wrong with the death penalty. I think there are too many different scenarios around this country We don't really have one solid way for how this is supposed to work. And so that's the issue I have with it. I don't like it. I don't advocate for it. But I understand why some people that is the route. And I do believe that if anyone should get the death penalty, that it should be people who have committed crimes against children. And when I say children, I mean anyone under the age of 18. And I believe that they should be the prime ones that should get the death penalty. And I don't think that it should just be limited to if you take the life of the child. Because you can take someone's life without killing them physically. And that is the thing that everybody minimizes. When people look at things done to children and they say, well, they didn't kill nobody. Do you realize that you can murder the soul of a person? And that could have a greater impact than you killing the person? And this is something yesterday that I watched Harvey and Mark Garagos talk about yesterday in the Mackenzie Shrillet thing too. Harvey had gave a scenario where he said one driver was driving a car and they got stopped by the police. They was two drunk drivers. One is driving drunk and he gets pulled over by the police. He's issued a ticket. He has to go to court and they make him pay a fine and he has to attend some classes. That is the punishment for the one. When you go to the second driver B, who's also a drunk driver, did the same behavior, had the same behavior as driver number one, right? Well, driver A, because I said B. So driver A had the same behavior as driver A. But unfortunately, in this scenario, there is a series of unfortunate circumstances where driver B is driving his car drunk, and the reason that he has an encounter with the police is because a child walks out into the street and driver B hits the child. Now, driver B is facing a prison sentence. They did the same behavior. But because one was caught by a police officer prior to anything bad happening, he is given a citation, he is made to pay a fine, and he's made to attend some classes. But now the impact of driver B doing the same behavior as driver A, right? Now he's hit a child and now he's facing prison. And Harvey was saying, I have an issue with that. And when y'all know, it is not often that I agree with Harvey or Mark Garagos on anything. And I don't think Mark Garagos was agreeing with Harvey. But I actually agree with Harvey when it comes to this and when it comes to things that involve children. Now, Harvey used a child in this scenario, but it really could have been anybody who jumped out into the street and got hit. So I'm not using the child in this scenario to formulate my opinion. But this is how I feel about people getting the death penalty for crimes committed against children, right? That's how serious I think we should take it as a society, right? When you have two people who have the same behavior and they do the same exact things to children, and one of them gets one type of sentence, and the other one, because they murdered the child, gets another type of sentence because there was a physical unaliving of the child, I don't agree with that. If the two people committed the same kind of acts against the child, and whether the child lives or is unalive, they should have the same penalty for the charge. And I believe that that's where it should be up to. Because I think in society, if we cared about children the way that we say that we do, then crimes against them would be taken the most serious. And it is because you are then impacting the life of someone else who is going to be entering society as an adult. And then you don't know what that impact will have on their life and how they're going to impact more lives because of it. And so as a result, that is the seriousness that I think is needed in order to stop some of these people from committing crimes against children. The deterrent that they need, because apparently they don't give a damn. Let me see. You said they wanted to send him to death row. He got life, and now they say that isn't good enough either. They got to appeal. Exactly, Justin. You said, didn't other people get shot in Julio's car too? Yes. Other people, yes. I think it was two other ones, Just B. So that's what I'm saying. You're trying to say that his life, and because now he's up against this big system. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on one second. Oh, hey. Yes. Thank you. Oh, I didn't know that was outside. Go to Walmart? Yeah. Y'all wanna bring that in here first? I'll go ask my dad. Okay. Okay, let me ask him. Tell him I said thanks. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, yes. Sorry, you guys. That was my kid's friend. But yeah, so yeah, there were other people shot in the car in the Julio situation. And it was the same thing that I said, you guys, when I was talking about what happened with Shamel Drinks in the YSO trial. When it came to the murder of Nut, right? I believe that they killed Nut, right? But I think that the prosecution did not do all of what was necessary to prove it without a reasonable doubt. As a juror, I could probably see where I could say, okay, emotionally, and based on what some of the things that I believe on the evidence, I do believe that it is very well possible that they did kill Nut. But I would not be able to come to a guilty verdict on that because there was still some questions. And it was the same thing that I tried to say in relation to the Michael Jackson case, right? There are jurors, and this is what is about to make people angry about the Netflix documentary that's about to come out. There are jurors from the Michael Jackson trial, right, that are supposed to appear, but these jurors said this like immediately after the trial. They didn't wait until all of these years to say this. Immediately after the trial, there were jurors who say that they believe, according to the evidence that was presented, they believe that Michael Jackson did something inappropriate with those children. Now, I can probably be more specific on what I think he did inappropriate, right? They didn't get specific. I don't know if in this new upcoming documentary, if they're going to be specific about what they believe, right? You said you agree with me, Michelle, about Michael. Are you talking about Michael Jackson or about the Shamel Drinks thing? Because I know you might be behind. But I'm gonna go back to the Shamel Drinks thing with the YSL trial in a minute. I know we all over the place, y'all, but this is how our lives go over here. And my people who are usually over here understand it, and whoever don't understand it, it ain't for them, I guess. Whatever, right? But I could probably say what I think more specifically. I think that Michael Jackson did with those children, it was inappropriate, right? Um, I'm gonna wait to say that because I want to talk about the Michael Jackson situation after the documentary. Because I want to wait to see how the documentary is going to present, and then I will come back and talk about it after that. I followed that trial at the time of the trial, and I posted on my community wall where people could go back and listen to the transcripts of that trial. And there were juror members who they believed, according to the evidence, that it was possible that there was something inappropriate Michael had done. But they don't believe that it was without a reasonable doubt that he was guilty of it. They believed that there were certain other things that were presented by the defense, certain other things that went wrong for the prosecution, and it was the reason that they could not convict Michael of it. And there were jurors who said that they felt like this wasn't a win for anyone. It wasn't a win for Michael. It was not a win for those families. They felt like it was because they said that the reason they said that is because they were admitting we did not arrive to the conclusion that Michael is innocent. That's why it's not a win for him. This is what some of the jurors on the jury had to say. They don't believe it was a win for Michael because they did not come to and arrive at a conclusion that Michael was innocent and that he had done nothing. They said that they had to come back with that verdict because of the lack of evidence, because of some of the things. And this is the thing that I think a lot of times people don't factor in. When people are assessing these child victims, right? So now they might be child victims. Okay, Cookie. Okay. Jessica, you said, I think the myth of Michael was too big to avoid bias. People believed he bleached himself white and slept in some sort of chamber. He was no ordinary man. It was too much reasonable doubt. That was the issue. Yes, Michelle. Yes, right. Exactly, Just V. It was so much bias in the Michael situation. And what those jurors had to really do is try to be in a situation where, okay, let us not use our judgment because we look at Michael as this big superstar and he is like God's gift to the world. And you know, you got people falling out of this concert. So we gotta get rid of all of that and we gotta look at this evidence and see, do we see something here, right? And then you had some people who may have had a bad opinion about Michael because of the things that they have seen about him over the years, because of the things that they have looked at. They might look at him as weird. And by looking at him as weird based on some of those things, they might be more likely to believe he would do these type of things. You had so many things that these jurors had to dismantle in order for them to try to look at this case with some degree of fairness. Because it came from so many different angles. But what several of those jurors admitted was that they felt Michael did something inappropriate. They don't feel like the evidence gave them all of what they needed to find him guilty. And as a result, they could not find him guilty. But they're not guilty did not mean they thought Michael was innocent. And this is where they felt like this was not a win for Michael either, despite what people want to think. A lot of people think a not guilty verdict is a win. But when you have jurors who come out after the trial and they express it's not a win because that's not how we came to our conclusion. When they come out and express that they did not believe him to be innocent, but they felt like it was too many things missing. They looked at some of the actions of some of the other people involved in the scenario. And this is how they came to their conclusion. And this is what I was saying when it comes to child victims, right? So this is one of the problems that I found with people when they are looking at a child victim. So, in a lot of these situations and scenarios, you have a person who was offended as a child, right? And then they become an adult and they grow up. And then when they grow up, then they get some type of courage to come out and speak about the crime that was committed against them as a child. You have one group of people in society who believe, oh, well, the time has passed. We don't want to hear it. So what? Right? And then you have another group that is going to look at the action of all of the adults in the situation. And they are going to cast doubt on what happened to the child because of what the adults did in response to what happened to the child. And in this situation with Michael Jackson, that's what I feel like a lot of the people did. You said also it's hard for an adult to explain why they keep company with children. It may be innocent, but it doesn't look that way. Yes, but this is what I'm going to say, Just V. And this is what I say about it was one thing that arrived me at a determination in the R. Kelly trial too. And then I can say it for the Michael Jackson situation too. Me, as a rational, reasonable thinking person, right? I'm rich. I'm famous. I'm a different person. I'm not this person. I'm somebody else. I'm rich. I'm famous, right? And I get into a scenario in a situation where someone makes an accusation against me about sexual assault. And this, for me, this could be whether it is a child or an adult. I don't care which one it would be, right? If I get into one scenario and it required for me to have to pay millions of dollars in order to get myself out of it, my rational thinking, just be, is not going to allow me to be back in that situation a fucking again. Because I am going to realize that the world is harsh, brutal, and short, and my good intentions can be misinterpreted as something that it is not. And I cannot allow myself to be placed back into a situation where, again, I am being accused of this again. And a lot of people praise, I think, what is his name? Farquhar, who did the Michael Jackson movie that they just had, saying, oh, because he did not discuss the child sex allegations. That is not true. He wanted to discuss it. He wanted to discuss the very first one. The very first one where Michael Jackson paid all those millions of dollars. The reason that he did not discuss that very first one is because of whatever non-disclosure agreement that family had. It didn't allow him to discuss it. And so he had to take that off. It was the reason why they had to go back and redo some things. And I think that's what made it. He said it took a longer time. But if you look at his interview, he wasn't avoiding discussing Michael Jackson's sexual assault allegations. He wanted to go back to the one where Michael paid all those millions, where that victim has yet to speak or say anything. And he couldn't because of the non-disclosure agreement or whatever it was that they had, legal document that they had with that case. And it is the reason why so many people have not been able to talk to that particular victim. But I think a lot of times these children that become adults, and then as adults come and talk about their victimization, they get evaluated and they get scrutinized because of what the adults around them did at the time of their victimization. You said you said it's too many instances. Exactly, Michelle. That's what I was saying. And just you said, I wonder if MJ would still run around with kids with the current and public awareness of SA. You're reasonable people out here are crazy but this is what I'm saying. This was the cause of alarm for me when it comes to somebody like a Michael Jackson or R. Kelly. And that's what I'm saying. I have a reasoning for how I arrive at I do. It is not, for me, it is not a group thinking. I have a reasoning. When you have been accused of all of those things and you are in the position that you are in, you have to do things to safeguard yourself from being accused of that again, right? And when a person does not do the basic things in order to protect themselves from that type of thing happening again, it makes me believe you are guilty of the very thing you were accused of. Because a lot of times we see this, even when you look at the pathology of a criminal that is not a celebrity, and you just look at basic behaviors of someone who is a criminal but not have a celebrity status. They do similar things. When you look at how the priest went about with their abuse, they went about it in the same type of order. They didn't give a damn that the Catholic Church had to pay out a whole bunch of money to a victim and that they almost got caught doing what they were doing. They sent them off to a treatment center. A lot of them came to a treatment center out here in Maryland and Baltimore. And then they would move them around to another parish. And then what would they do? They would re-offend again. They would re-offend. Despite the fact that they were almost caught, despite the fact that the church had to pay out lots of money, they would still do it again. So you see, to me, I saw that same type of pattern when it came to these two individuals. And this is what made me arrive at what I arrived at. Not anything else. I saw the same type of pattern. it's like, Michael, why would you put yourself after having to pay? I said this a couple of weeks ago that there's an old adage, and really that old adage is a Bible verse, and it says, "Where your heart is, there will your treasure be also." Right? Meaning, your heart is going to be where you put your money. Why would you continue for your money to be drained because of your quote unquote love for children? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. Like, all of the people who want to believe that there was no problem here, they want us to believe that, right? And that, oh, they just loved children, and they just love being around children, and they just wanted to do something good for children, and all of this. I'm so, okay, that's all fine and dandy. I'm not disputing that that could be a possibility for people. You all heard me just a couple of days ago talk about me thinking that Blueface's interactions with Nevaeh's son are innocent. That I think that he actually has a better relationship with Nevaeh's son than he does with Nevaeh. I don't think, to me, I don't see anything. I'm not saying that he's not, or won't, we later on we won't find out, but I don't see anything nefarious about Blueface and how he is taking a liking to Nevaeh's son. I find a problem with how she's exposed him to Blueface so early on. What role Blueface has taken in his life so early on. Those things maybe I might find an issue with, but I don't think that there's anything. I think it's innocent. I actually like when I see him interact, other than the fact that the conversations that they have around him, I don't agree with and all that. But outside of that, when I look at Blueface interact with Nevaeh's son Superior, I believe that a large part of the reason why Blueface probably gives Nevaeh the money that he gives her has to do with his liking to the kid, right? And so I'm not ever against a stranger or a celebrity or anybody showing love to a child. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when your love for children has come to a point where it is putting you in predicaments where you are taking a whole bunch of your money and having to spend it into lawsuits that are being or that are either being filed or being or threatened to be filed against you because of your misconduct, because of your bad behavior. At some point, a light bulb is going to say, I don't want to keep spending my money on this. Despite the fact that I love children and I want to help people out, I can't put myself in a situation where I'm at risk like that anymore. And you're going to stop. That, to me, a person that a person that does not stop that behavior, it is because I believe they have a problem. And that problem is connected to whatever they are being accused of. And that is how I arrived to my conclusion. I have a very reasonable way. And I'm not saying that it means that I'm right. But I have a reason. I come to a rationale to why I came to that kind of conclusion. You don't continue to place yourself in situations, in predicaments where you can be accused of these things. If you know that being involved with 25 women ends you in a whole bunch of legal trouble, at some point, the light bulb should go off and say, guess what? It's probably an issue that I'm involved with 25 women. Let me just get one woman that I can, and then I won't have these problems. And then you abandon all of that shit and you just, because it brings you problems. Everybody wants to focus in on what they believe the problem is, but they are not looking at who's creating the problem. Who is creating the foundation for it to be a problem? And for me, that's where I go back to. I go back to who created the scenario to be the way that it is. Who made this foundation? And whoever laid the foundation, to me, that is the person that is responsible when it all comes crumbling down. And that's how I look at the Michael Jackson situation. But I think with a lot of the children, they became adults that had been victimized by Michael Jackson or his whether people want to look at him as his victims, his accusers, whatever they want to look at him as, right? I believe that they were assessed based on what the adults around them did in response to their victimization, as opposed to whether or not were these children really victims. And this is the thing. This is something that the defense plays on. They are able to play on and play around with this thing because they know that's what people are going to do. They know people are going to look at what were the actions of the parents once the kid was assaulted. And they are going to be able to somehow misrepresent or skew what the parents did and make people question, did something really happen to the child? And in the situation with Michael Jackson, that's exactly what I think happened. Just you said, I listened to Jimmy Jam talk about how excited MJ was to be in Minnesota, where he could wear a shiesty mask and go to the Mall of America. I really think he lived in Neverland. And his lawyer is the criminal case also said that he didn't understand that he could go to prison. Well, this is the thing, Just V. I think that's something that can be consistent amongst criminals. The fact that they don't think they can go to prison. Because the fact that they think that they can't go to prison is what allows them a lot of the time to do the crime in the first place. They think they're going to get away with it. They never think they're going to get caught. And so let me explain when I say that I think, because I was going to wait to say this, but since we're having a conversation and we got a little bit of that trolling out the way, I think I can be honest in our conversation. So I what I think Michael Jackson did, you said, and his lawyers in the criminal case also said that he didn't. Oh, I read that part. Okay. I think that what Michael Jackson did with those children wasn't like him penetrating them or them penetrating him or anything like that. I think that what Michael Jackson did with those children was mutual masturbation. That's what I think. And I think that's why it's something in him that he didn't see the harm in it. And so I don't think that it was ever to a situation where because when I listened to the accounts of several of those victims, one of the things that most of them consistently talked about was this mutual masturbation thing. And I think that that is more than likely what Michael Jackson was doing in the bed with them kids under the covers. I don't think that his mind, the capacity of his brain, and because it's weird. I'm not trying to sound like I have sympathy for someone who I think would engage a child in that. But for Michael Jackson, I don't think his mind went to that. I think that he felt like if he did penetrate, that would be him harming them. So I think that was where he drew the line because he didn't because I think that's where he drew the line was at mutual masturbation. Maybe they are masturbating at the same time. Maybe they are masturbating each other. But I don't think that it ever went to a situation of penetration or even oral when it came to Michael Jackson's victims. I think it stayed there. That's my opinion. Now, I know other people have opinions that he didn't do anything. I know some people have opinions that he went all the way. I know there are some people who are going to think, well, if you think that he participated in mutual masturbation, why wouldn't you think he would go further? They're all entitled to have those opinions. That's my opinion. That's where I think it stopped. That's my opinion. You said, oh, I think with MJ, he didn't have a sense of reality. He's been a superstar superstar since 7. Normal people don't think that Backyard should be in the museum zoo park animals. Could have been. I don't think he had a normal sense of yeah. And so I think that if he, and that's why when they suggest to him like that he's doing something to harming the child, I think in his mind he's saying, well, I didn't penetrate these kids. I didn't have these kids give me any kind of oral. He probably, after getting himself into all of these multiple situations, probably figured out that these instances of doing this masturbation with them, that was a problem. But I don't think he looked at that as a real problem. And it is maybe just be like you say, he didn't look at it as a problem because part of his growth is stunted at a certain age because of his own trauma. And so he when you look, like when I listen to the stories of the young boys from the situation with African Bombada, right? And they talked about how Bombada groomed them into certain situations and scenarios. One of the things that they talked about was group masturbation, mutual masturbation. Like they talked about that and talked about that being part of the grooming process for a boy. As women, we might not have experienced that because we aren't men. We don't know what that is. Let me tell you something. I'm pretty sure it's a lot of men, and there's some of the men out here who know what I'm saying, and they know I'm saying something right because it happened to them, and they're not going to admit it. They're not going to admit it. But it probably happened to them. If they were being honest and telling the truth, there are too many men who talk about their victimization. And they talk about this being the element of their victimization, that it leads me to believe that this is something that boys going through puberty somehow, they just think that it's okay to do that. Or, and so this is why it's easy to use that as a grooming strategy, because if they think it's okay for them to sit around and watch porn and then masturbate amongst each other, then someone who is a predator is going to use that in order to groom them into other activities. And I've heard too many men who tell their victimization stories talk about this for me not to believe that it is one of the strategies that is widely implemented by predators when it comes to boy victims. They know that this is something that boys are likely to do. They sometimes don't see anything wrong with doing that. And so since they don't see anything wrong with it, they kind of use it to groom their victim. So that's just my opinion. You said it's crazy looking at J5 videos. He was so young. Some of his brothers were teenagers and he was still the star. I don't see how you can develop normally with exactly. Just be that's what I'm saying. And so I think that you what you said is really, really like proving my point is that the reason he may have thought that him having those sessions where he's in there with them boys and they're exploring sexually, what pubescent and prepubescent and pubescent boys do, he didn't see anything wrong with it. But he did know it was wrong because he knew to do it behind closed doors. He was locking them doors and stuff with them kids in there. It was lots of people who testified to that, right? But so he knew that, yeah, this is probably like improper for me to be doing, but I don't think that he looked at it. I think he looked at it as improper because it was something about sexuality that he just did not know much about or know anything about. And when you hear him talking about wanting to have certain experiences before he dies, you see how he doesn't know anything about that. And he's often revered by so many, but nobody, I guess there were some people who like looked at Michael Jackson as a sex symbol, but I think more so people looked at him as an anomaly. They didn't look at him as something sexual, you know? And so, and I think that maybe he wanted people to look at him like that, because that was part of him not being able to explore and then come into his own sexuality. Um, but I really do think that was the inappropriate. For me, I think he may have been have just known to be shy with his body, hence the locked doors. Well, with the kids in there, you say he wasn't. I don't think that it wasn't that he wasn't sexual at all, but I think it was like a self-pleasuring thing. And I think that at times that when he was in there with those children, they did self-pleasure. They did, where they mutually exchange nothing, like I said, oral or penetration, but just, like I said, masturbation. Yes, I mean shot and loud doors, but yeah, so I don't know. I just That's what I think the inappropriate activity was. And when I listened to the testimony of multiple victims of what multiple of his alleged accusers and victims had said over the years, and then I compared that to, like you said, what we do know about his childhood and what parts that childhood may have been cut off at, and I have come to a conclusion that I think that was the inappropriateness. I think that was the sexual assault. That was the inappropriateness. I would never say I'm going to believe that Michael Jackson penetrated those children, that he did oral with those children, but I do believe that there was some form of mutual masturbation and self-pleasuring in front of these children. And I don't know what the jurors are gonna say about what they think happened. That's why I wanted to watch this documentary that's about to come out, to see if they give any more idea to what they believe took place. But that's what I think. That's what I think. And I think that it was something that was his only, I think at some point maybe that was his only way of getting pleasure. And this is why he ended up spending so much money in lawsuits trying to cover this thing up, because even if he tried to stop it, he could not. It was something that he could not stop. It was his only way of being pleasured that way. And so it was to have a kid that he can feel like that he's taken care of because they're in a bad, vulnerable situation, health wise or whatever. And then, he does this thing. But I think that the victims were impacted by what their parents did while they were children when this happened to them. And I believe that that is where the public was blinded and seeing what really transpired and took place. And well, some of the public, because I know I'm not the only person who thinks like this, but some of the public doesn't, is jaded by it. And I know that the defense knew that that would be a good way in order to cast doubt and dispersions on the situation, because um that's the same situation they use all the time. They're going to always look at how did the parents respond? What did they do? Did they take any money? Why didn't the child speak up sooner? Why do you think a child who has parents who are willing to take money for their victimization would come and speak sooner? That is the hurdle that makes it difficult for me to understand. If you have a child who needs to exploit sex for money, or whose parents are willing to exploit them sexually for money, what what in your mind makes you believe that that individual would come forward as a child and say what happened to them? I don't get why people think that. A lot of the people who have this thinking of, well, children know what's wrong and they know how to say what's wrong, and if somebody did something to you, tell. Well, what happens when the person that you tell is willing to be paid for your victimization? How does that impact the child telling? Why isn't that factored into the scenarios when you're asking the question, what did the adults in the room do about the situation when they found out? If you look at what the adults in the room did when they found out about the situation, then that can almost explain to you, we could use that just the same way the defense uses it as a foundation in order to try to cast doubt on the victimization. It can also be used to say, why do you think that this child would come out and tell? Why do you think that it would make them wait until years and years and years down the line when they become 40, 50 years old to tell? Because none of the adults in the room thought it was important. And so they adopted this thinking that it's not important. And I just need to try to figure out a way to just move on with my life. Like, that's an easy thing to look at. In conclusion, to come to, you said, you said I don't want to believe it, but you may be right. I think it's a lot of just me. I think it's a lot of people who don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it. I am not one of those people who, when something happens horrible with a celebrity or entertainer or anyone, that I say, okay, we're gonna go out and we're gonna just abandon everything that they've ever done. Any cultural contribution that they've done. I'm not one of those kind of people, right? And so I have a love for Michael Jackson, especially. I love Michael Jackson as an adult, but especially when it comes to his Jackson 5 years, right? I love Michael Jackson, but I have to be realistic. There were points in my life, knowing this entertainer as an entertainer, because I don't know him personal, but knowing him as an entertainer, where I did not think he was capable of this. But as I listened to that trial, I listened to the testimony of these victims, I've listened to the stuff come out over the years, I've looked at and assessed what Michael Jackson did in relation. Hold on, I gotta send something. Hold on 1 second. I had to send the child money, so I had to pause y'all for a second. I forgot that I had to send her money out. When I had paused y'all for a second, her friend had came past, and then she ended up going. She went somewhere with her, so I had to send money off to the child. So sorry, I had to pause you guys for a minute. But yeah, this is when I say that I believe that these people did the things. It's not me saying that. I'm saying that with delight. Because number one, one of the main reasons why I'm not delighted about them doing it is because then it was done, it harmed someone. That's why there's no delight in me saying it. I think that people think that when we have conversations and then we have some laughter about certain things or whatever, that they think that we are not taking something serious or whatever. But that's not the case. It's you have to find something to laugh about. And I think that's just, especially for us people of color, that is what we have done to laugh about, because the experiences sometimes are so serious in nature that you have difficulty speaking about them. And so you create some type of comic relief in the process of speaking about it, right? As we speak about it. But I never wanted to believe any of these people that I'm speaking about would have done these things. I try to exhaust all possible measures before I come to a conclusion that I think a person did something. I didn't start out thinking any of these people did what they were accused of doing. For many years, because Rashona's parents and because Aaliyah's parents did not say anything about what he was accused of, R. Kelly was accused of, that's what I went on. Hey, Ty. That's what I went off of. And that was the thing I said to people. And I attended the concerts. And I said, if these parents are saying he didn't do this, why is everyone else saying it? But I also understand what happened with victims. And there were certain things that when they came out, I could not ignore them. And I understand there are some people who still want to continue ignoring them. And I can guarantee you that if it was another scenario in another situation with someone else that was not known, they wouldn't believe none of the bullshit. But they believe it when it comes to this scenario. And my thing is that I just so happen not to think like that. If I look at something and I see too much evidence pointing towards that this person did this shit, and even if it's somebody who, because I don't look up to none of these people. I just happen to like their contributions to the culture with some of them. Like, I haven't stopped listening to P. Diddy songs that he's on. You know what I'm saying? I don't stop listening to R. Kelly music, to be honest. I'm not going to stop listening to Michael Jackson music. But I can be honest and say this is what I think about what they were accused of doing. And this is what I think they did. And it is not, it's the same thing I say when this whole thing came up with T.I. again. And somebody was saying, bringing something up about him again. Knowing him and Tiny's history, knowing that they participated in some of the things, I love T.I. as an artist. And I know that they've done some things in their private life, but I have to give it an honest assessment. I gotta look at it honestly and say, okay, after the information comes out, did he do it? Same thing I can say when I look at the Stephon Diggs situation, despite what people really think I was saying, or they try to make like you were saying when you were talking about it. Number one, I was only creating a scenario that was on the reverse in the flip side. That's one thing I was doing, right? Was on the flip side, because nobody ever wants to accept the verdict when it's not in their favor. And so when the verdict is in the favor of the person you're in favor of, why do you expect other people to accept it? They're not going to accept it either. They are like, I found it odd that there were some people who didn't accept, who thought that everyone should accept the Stephon Diggs verdict. But then there are other cases where the person is found guilty and they don't think you should accept that. Well, it can work on both sides. But the reality is that a lot of people interpret what the jury does in saying that the person is guilty or innocent, and then they will come to a conclusion on that. I happen to not come to a conclusion when that is the case. I don't look at a jury's not guilty and say, oh, that person is innocent. When I look at a jury's not guilty, I try to look at the case, look at the evidence, and in some situations, I might come to a conclusion and say, okay, the jury probably thought that person never did it, right? And then other times, I can look at it and say, okay, there were enough jurors on that jury panel who probably felt like the prosecution didn't prove their case. And they didn't want to convict someone with a case that the prosecution failed to prove. And so it doesn't mean that the person is innocent. It means they're not guilty because based on the preponderance of the evidence, the jury could not convict the person. And that speaks to what I was saying when I was discussing the YSL situation with the Nut and Shamel Drinks murders specifically. With the Nut murder, there were things that I could say, okay, I don't know. Maybe I do believe they killed Nut, but I don't think the prosecution proved the case. But when it came to the murder of Shamel Drinks, I felt like the prosecution proved that case. And the two individuals that they had left sitting in that courtroom were the two individuals in the vehicle, in addition to one other person, right? In addition to one other person. But the two individuals that were left in that courtroom, they committed that murder. And the main one, I believe, committed the murder was Shannon. I don't think it was Yad Gotti. I think it was Shannon is the one who actually pulled the trigger. But you got Yad Gotti in the car. And I believe that all of the people in the car, they had an idea and knew what they were doing. They were part of the setup of the situation. And I felt like any jury, this is a situation where I felt like because the jury was overwhelmed by the trial and all of the things that took place, they were overwhelmed by the evidence. They were overwhelmed by just everything that was going on. They did not do their job. I do not feel like that jury did their job in that count on Shamel Drinks. That is the one count I will always challenge that jury about. I felt like they looked at all of the rest of what was remaining, and it was a mixed verdict because they did find Shannon guilty of some things. Yak, I think they found Shannon guilty when it came to the gun. And they couldn't not find him guilty on that because the evidence was so explicit when it came to that. But I felt like the same thing should have happened when it came to that murder of Shamel Drinks. And a lot of people want to hinge it on, like a lot of the people who were in support of YSL just because they were in support of them because of their contribution to pop culture. They don't want to admit this, but the fact that they tried to point to the other vehicle on the road during the time of that shooting was a bunch of bullshit. It was a bunch of bullshit. And the people spewing it knew it was bullshit. I'm sorry. It was bullshit. Now, do I think that the prosecution should have exhausted every investigative measure to make sure that they ruled out that vehicle? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because look at what ends up happening. You leave a space for people to defend this and say the verdict was right. But based off of what I saw in that video, based on what was all of the evidence that showed the orchestration and everything around it, it was enough circumstantial evidence to show they committed that murder. And in that respect, that's where I feel horrible for Shamel Drinks' family. because of whatever ambitions or whatever Fonny and DA Love and all that, whatever they had going on and whatever they were trying to do, that somehow his murder got sucked up into that. And I think that if his murder could have been looked at separately outside of all of the other performative shit that had been done, that a jury would have been able to come to a verdict of a guilty on that murder. But because of all of the things that took place in that trial, I believe the jury had fatigue. They wanted to get out of there. They knew that Shannon's girlfriend had got on that stand that for a fact that he had that gun and that couldn't be disputed. They found him guilty with that. And then I think it was one other count that Shannon was found guilty on. And then that was it. It was over and done with. And I think that Shamel Drink's murder got sucked up in all of that bullshit. And out of that trial, that is the one thing that pisses me off about that trial. It's how his murder got sucked up into all of that, because I felt like out of all of the evidence, out of all of the charges, that was the one that I felt like the prosecution had met their burden of proof. That they did this. That they committed this crime. I mean, to the point to where the video points out how Shannon opens the door on the vehicle. But you had all the people putting spin on that shit and just throwing vomit on that and trying to make all kind of excuses and justifications. It's like there is none. Just stop. It is evident. It's right here in our face. I don't know, you guys. That's just where I am with it. But I know we went all around the world. We went all around the world in this live, but mainly I came on here to point that out. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. Anyone who has not seen Prima Donna Live from yesterday, I would encourage you. I think I had jumped in there. I think it was the live had been on for like over an hour. So I'm not exactly sure at what mark it was that I went into that. But I encourage y'all to go and look at that and tell me what y'all think. Because I thought that it was absolutely funny the way that Dana presented it and then how Prima Donna followed it up on her commentary. It had me, oh my God, I could not breathe. That's how funny it was to me. You guys, I'm going to get up off of here because I got something I need to do at 3:00. Thank you all for coming in here and talking to me. Ty, Just V, Cookie, Michelle, Purple, and even JoJo. Thank y'all for coming in here and having conversation with me today. I do appreciate it. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. I have a very busy week, so I'm not sure what it's going to look like with me being able to come on live. And more than likely, if I can, it will be after 3:00 probably. But I'll stay in touch with you guys. And if I don't get to talk to you, have a good week and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.